All right, cool. There was supposed to be music along with that, and I'm not sure that it played, so might have been sitting there in silent for a little bit, but it, it gave us some time to let everyone start to join. So this week, super excited to change it up a little bit and have a little bit of different conversation, something that online sellers and that businesses should absolutely focus on, and I think we'll talk on is not always people's top priority, which is sometimes a bit of a mistake. So let me pull it up here. Cool. So we have Scott from Catching Clouds with us today. So one second. Sorry about that. So Catching Clouds is a company that provides outsourced cloud accounting services to e-commerce businesses. Scott himself consults, speaks, and blogs as an e-commerce accounting and technology expert who specializes in business processing optimization. Scott himself is passionate about leveraging technology in smart and new ways to improve businesses' productivity and profitability. So Scott, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. No, I appreciate being here. We've been talking and collaborating and a partner with Payoneer for years and years now, and always happy to talk about e-commerce accounting and the things that we live and breathe every day.
Absolutely. Ben?
Yeah, Scott, and we're excited to learn a lot more as well. Really excited to understand, I think, what services you provide to help e-commerce sellers, understand their businesses, stay profitable, and keep their businesses in line. So really to kick us off, can you kind of give us an overview and talk about the importance of accurate financials and how that's really going to help sellers understand their business and understand their business goals?
Yeah. So why should you do this bookkeeping accounting thing? Wait, do I have to as an entrepreneur? And the answer is, if you want detailed, accurate financials that you can trust to make great business decisions, you've got to put the time and effort in. But the real value to you is the ability to see something. And the nice thing about accounting is that if you use a double entry accounting solution like Xero that we use, or QBO or others, and you actually capture every bank account transaction, every credit card transaction, post all your income, track all your bills, update cost of goods sold, post your income, and do all of those things properly with a set, approach. It's actually truth. It's actually, in this day and age, it's something you can actually get to that's actually true, that you can both take those numbers to, use them for your taxes and feel confident, as long as you're doing it daily, weekly, monthly, not once a year. Okay. We believe in management accounting and looking things on an ongoing basis. You can take it to investors or banks or your spouse that wonders what the hell you're doing with this, e-commerce business, and you're working all the time, but they have no idea if it's actually making you any money or not. And then one of the key things that I think it's there is to adjust your gut decisions when you're making decisions real time. So when you're repricing products or deciding what products to buy or how much to spend on inventory, and you have questions about your business going, was I profitable last month? Was last month better than the prior month? But when you're looking at real-time tools that are showing you either the sales on Shopify or Amazon or whatever else, you need to know when it filters through double entry accounting at the end that the numbers you see on the screen are 5% too high or 10% too low, so that you can adapt that. And then each month you need to compare and say, okay, we did a better job of costing. Now it's only 2 or 3%. Or, oh, wait, I thought I made a lot more. It's not an issue now, but for a long time, Shopify on their dashboard showed voided orders. And so the clients would watch that all month thinking, hey, I made $100,000 on Shopify this month. And we'd go, you made 72,000. And they're like, where'd the other 28,000 go? I'm like, they were voided, canceled order. You never got paid for them. They weren't real. So it is something you need to commit to. One of the things I do tell most entrepreneurs is you need to do your bookkeeping and accounting just like wearing every other hat, right, and doing it yourself for a short amount of time if it drives you crazy, or a longer amount of time, because if you do it yourself, you'll get a general feel for what it takes, and you'll do a much better job either hiring someone to do it, outsourcing it to an international VA, or a company like Catching Clouds.
And if nothing else, it helps you understand when you are working with somebody else, they're going to give you a report or a number or this or that, and you're going to, if you don't understand, if you don't ever do it yourself, you're not going to know what they're giving you, and you're going to take what they say for Bible, which is good because you're working with experts. But as the main decision maker in the business, you should probably know all parts of your business.
Yeah, and we make the effort with our team to make sure we educate our clients on how to read financials, how to read a balance sheet, how to read a P&L. So my co-founder and partner is my wife. She's our CEO, chief controller, CPA, oversees our accounting team. I couldn't read a balance sheet and a P&L before we started this business. I had seen them before, but I couldn't read them. And so it's our goal to help point out the insights that are going on, but always educating our clients so they can read them themselves. So there's a pretty good book called Financial Intelligence for Entrepreneurs that I recommend. That's a good book, even though it talks about much larger companies, but it covers the concepts pretty well. So I kind of refer back to it when I'm looking for good things to do. But and you want to make sure you've got if you're an e-commerce business with an inventory, which most do, unless you're purely drop ship, you need to have a system like Xero or QBO that has a balance sheet so you can keep track of inventory and your assets. If you're dealing with a free accounting app or a service that only provides you a profit and loss statement, an income statement, that doesn't do you any good as an e-commerce business.
Yeah, I think one of the key things you just said there too is using this data, using this real-time information, this source of truth, because we're seeing what's coming in, what's going out, and maybe there's a little bit more going out than coming in on some months. In some months, there's a lot more coming in that's going out, but using that to make good data-driven decisions. And when we're talking about what's coming in and what's going out, I know the important thing for merchants and specifically e-commerce merchants is cash flow, which is key to their business. So can you talk about some of the insights you help provide your clients or e-commerce sellers in general about the importance of cash?
Yeah. So, one of the key things is you need to manage your cash flow. There are many, many businesses, including e-commerce businesses, that are very profitable that go out of business because they're not managing their cash. Okay. They either run out of cash and can't buy more inventory, and then their sales drop and they lose their ranking, or all those other things, as well as kind of peace of mind that if you're not taking the time to do a cash flow projection, which says, these are my expenses, this is my payroll, here's my internet, here's my base 3PL cost, and your base expenses compared to when your income comes in. With Amazon, it comes in every 2 weeks, unless, you're working with another tool. You've got all these things. Shopify can come in daily, depending on what's going on. Some are every 2 weeks, some are every month. And you need to know what those totals are, because what we're trying to do is to plan out over the next 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks in a shorter time frame, how much money, cash, is available to either spend on product, spend on marketing, invest in the business, or to pay yourself as the owner, as a distribution. Because what's really difficult and painful for a business is when you're like, I got to pay all these bills, and you pull money out of the business, and then 2 weeks later, you got to put that much or more in because you weren't tracking everything. You spent too much on inventory and you've used up all your lines of credit. So your business is starving and you can't make those decisions. The other piece is always keep an eye on your marketing. Make sure it never is running away. So it's very easy. These apps, Facebook, Google, everybody makes it pretty easy to not check the right boxes and have runaway marketing. Okay. And that you're spending not only what you planned on spending on that product, but you're spending all of your profit or more per sale to get a sale. And that if you're not watching those things, you can see where you're bleeding cash and money. And everybody knows you got to always go manage your marketing spend. But some of the biggest insights are, just understanding the flow of your business. And that's separate from the balance sheet and the P&L, which really is a monthly review. Okay. A few things happen throughout the month. You can see some income flow. You can look at point expenses, and that's a monthly process. Cash flow, depending on our clients, we work with pretty large sellers. So some of our clients have hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank and they're not worried, and they always keep a huge buffer. But others, at times like now in Q4, you might want to do it weekly. Daily is kind of overkill unless you really want to know, hey, today I want to know how much can I either pay down my credit card so I can buy more inventory, or what do I want to do? You do want to be careful with some of the apps out there. So most e-commerce business, and we work with a ton, love credit card points. Used to be for travel. Now everybody's probably taking out cash because you can't go anywhere. And the idea is to know what that is, and to really, e-commerce businesses really treat, some of the things like the working capital that Payoneer provides and other credit cards. They're just capital. They're not debt. This isn't, oh my God, I've put a ton of money on my credit card, I'm going to pay it off for $100 every month. No, most sellers that we have pay off their credit cards weekly or every few days, because they buy $100,000 worth of inventory, get money in a few days later, pay it down and move it. It's just capital. And you want to make sure you have access to cash, and your own cash to bootstrap it, then a line of credit at the bank, depending on how old of a business, and if you've got a decent banking relationship. And then you want to look at tools like the credit cards or the Payoneer working capital loan, and you want to stack those up and know them. The other thing you want to keep an eye on is that with the crunch and everything that's been going on, there are a bunch of sites. You can't just assume I've got a 50K on this credit card if you don't check ahead of time, because they might do a risk assessment or go, oh, we're scared about the stock market, and cut it down. Either close it and you don't know about it and you think you have access to that additional capital, so that you're not starving your business for the cash it needs to run. And you can never miss payroll. If you want to blow up your company, just miss payroll, have half your staff quit, or have to give them raises so they're not upset or whatever else. Is you've got to keep an eye on some of those fundamentals. And running out of cash is also very stressful on the owners.
Yeah, and I think, one of the key takeaways from that too is making sure that you're exactly that, always staying on top of it, knowing that, if I'm going to, as per the example, I'm going to purchase $100,000 of inventory this day, and then I'm going to need capital to get me to this milestone, but then I have to stay on top of my advertising, my PPC, so I can stay, ahead of things. Then I have to pay my payroll. It definitely seems like a lot for sellers. So, as we head into Q4 here, and maybe there's all these financial issues on sellers' minds, they're not sure about inventory, they're not sure about, what the holiday is going to look like, what 2021 is going to look like. But taking a step back from all that, like I said, as we head into Q4, do you think some of the key things that sellers need to do for a successful Q4 and really set themselves up for a big Q4 and potentially an even bigger 2021?
Yeah. Now, most people have already done a lot of the work all summer, or even Q1, Q2 to get ready for now. It's the don't get too caught, don't burn yourself out. Add more virtual accountants so you can get through it, and make sure you're paying attention to all aspects of your business. Okay. Customer feedback, stock outs, buying new inventory, and then the accounting and finance and what's going on, and definitely reviewing your marketing. So you want to do that, but start also capturing some data to get a feel, because you're going to have lessons to go, because there are a lot of cases, if you do things well and right, marketing well, you can take your Q4 boost and maintain it in the following year. You don't have to assume a 50% or 20% or 10% drop in January, February. You get a wave of returns and other stuff, but the idea is, what can you learn about what's going on? So you need to make sure, as the owner, you've got enough support staff, whether that's virtual assistants or outsourcing certain work or whatever else, so that you can actually have at least a few minutes every day to, pet the kids and walk the dog, or walk the kids and pet the dog, and then take a step back and go, okay, what is going on in my business? Okay, here's the top 3 priorities and focus. And it's just the standard kind of getting things done approach. The next thing that everybody in Q4 has to pay attention to are a few things. And we don't do federal and state income taxes, but one of the key things everybody should do is meet with their CPA in November or December to do tax planning. You need to plan out and pay out, whether it's buying inventory or buying fixed assets or paying out bonuses to paying out yourself, distributions to the owners. You want to make sure you do all the right things in Q4 before December 31st, so that things work out the way you plan on tax day. Okay. So, and this isn't cooking the books. This is just standard tax planning that you should do to manage your business and finances, so that the taxes work out. And hopefully you're keeping an eye on, and your CPA is also telling you how much cash you're going to need in February, March, or April to pay your taxes. And you've got that set aside, and you don't touch that. Okay. Even if you don't already have it set aside, in Q4, you can probably generate it. So those are some of the key things. The next thing you want to do is make sure you're on top of your 1099s. And even if, like most of our sellers, take off the first 2 weeks of January, and then they come back and deal with returns, but you can't forget the fact that you need to make sure if you have employees and you're doing W-2s, that those get out in January, because there's pretty big fines. The other one is 1099. So if you have any subcontractors, partners, whoever you're renting from, all need to get a W-9, and you need to issue a 1099 by January 31st, okay? Or there's just massive fines, and it's just not pretty. You don't have to necessarily do it yourself. We use a tool called Track 1099. Typically, you would outsource it and have your CPA or whoever doing it. But if you haven't been keeping tabs of all your contractors and you don't have their email addresses or have signed W-9s, if you don't start now, it's really difficult to get a hold of all those people in January. So those are kind of the big things, is just make sure you block out time between now and the end of the year to meet with your CPA, figure out what that plan is and go. And, you can run into situations if you don't do that planning where you're paying tens of thousands of dollars and more in tax than you should have.
Right. And, we talk about this and, keeping your books good and everything for just running your business as normal, like normal things that you should do as an entrepreneur and as a business. But a trend we're also seeing is, businesses looking to sell. They've leveraged the marketplace, they've leveraged their own website, they've created a brand or a business, and they've either reached a peak themselves, or they've had enough and they want to start over. Maybe they're a little crazy like that, but they're looking to sell, and that is another thing that we hear a lot. And one thing that we wanted to talk about here is obviously when you're looking to sell, in terms of valuation and price sale, and when somebody else externally is going to come look at your accounting and your books, like what kind of steps can you take to be ready ahead of that? Is there anything different than the stuff we've just talked about, maybe?
Only a little. I mean, for the most part, they're going to want to see a historical path of the sales, and not only the business health and how profitable it is after all the costs and expenses. But they're going to look at individual products and SKUs, and you might be selling off a single brand or a Shopify site or whatever else. But all the decisions that you're making on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, if you're making the best decisions for your business to make sure it's the best place for you to work, it generates you the most amount of profit as the entrepreneur and owner. And you want to keep track of all of those things. And if you're doing that every day, you're always doing what's best for the business, you're going to be able to do it. But you want to have solid, consistent financials so you can tell a story when they go, well, why did you lose money in July? And you're like, oh, I ordered a bunch of product, then it, got tanked, and then the insurance company wouldn't do it. And, there are stories. Bad things happen in businesses, and you can say, here's what's going on. Yeah, I had to write off, 3 pallets of inventory or whatever that is. You want to be able to tell that story, and buyers and brokers will advise them. And we work with a bunch of brokers, will advise them. You need to be able to tell a consistent story. Now, it's not the same thing as having to memorize your financials to present on Shark Tank. You really do want to have somebody that can present your financials and answer those questions and say, no, here's what's going on. Yes, the balance sheet balances. Yeah, the statement of cash flow is correct. Now let's look at the details. And then you just need to know what your add backs are. So, the question is, are you going to get paid out on the profitability of the business? Are you going to get paid out on the income? Typically, it's some multiple typically of your, available cash and profitability minus the long-term expenses. So they'll pull out the owner's salary. Okay. If you just reinvested in a new conversion to Shopify and upgraded your website and that cost you 20 grand, that gets pulled out. It's kind of a one-time expense. So you can keep doing the right things, and you don't need to starve your business to make it look more profitable so that you can sell it for the most amount. You want to make sure you're investing in the right pieces, because a lot of those get pulled out from overhead because the next company may not have to pay for those, and so it'll be there. The other key advice is talk to a broker early. If you're thinking about selling in the next 12, 24, 36 months, build up a relationship with a broker. They are happy to talk to you. They'll provide specific guidance, along the lines of you're really looking for companies that have their own trademarked apps or products, and much more focused products, and then solid social media following. And those things all add up with financials to get you the most money for your business. And if you start talking to one now and get it all set up, and then something happens, you have a health challenge or something happens personally next year, you're already queued up. You reach out to them, you've already been doing some of the work, because we really believe in doing the hit by a bus, making sure all of our insurance is in place and documented, and all the stuff for our kids is taken care of. And I'm a firm believer in Murphy. So if you take care of those things, the chance of something happening goes down to some extent. But if it does, you're prepared, you know who to call and make a sale happen in a hurry.
Yeah, and I think that really encompasses, right, what we've all experienced here in 2021 is that, business, we had a global pandemic. It threw a huge wrench in, I'm sure, a lot of e-commerce sellers' plans. And, those who had a good plan, I'm sure, were able to come out of this on top. And those who didn't plan were probably scrambling or maybe still recuperating, trying to understand their business. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so I was just thinking that, and even if your business is distressed, okay, your business is distressed, but you've got a solid product, but you're run out of cash flow, and you're like, I need money to move forward. There are a ton of institutional investors that are looking for not just profitable companies, but distressed companies. So don't just assume, unless you're buying retail, like you're just buying whatever products you can find and selling those. But if you have a product, whether it's a private label product, or you've got a specific niche, and that you've got a great social media following, but your company itself isn't very profitable or not running well, that's an okay time to get out, and that you probably can get some value for that time versus just letting it die on the vine.
Yeah, and I think that's a big trend that we're going to see coming up here in the next year, the next few years, as brands are able to really use Amazon as their sandbox, are able to test out, have that core customer base right there, figure out what products sell well, which products don't. Maybe they turn that into their own direct-to-consumer website, as you mentioned, with Shopify or BigCommerce or other great tools out there. Or maybe they test the waters on international marketplaces or on Walmart, as we've seen growth, basically 2x itself since this time last year. So I know I'm personally really excited to see, as you mentioned, if institutional investors are going to start investing in brands that are incubated on Amazon, or if we're going to see more of the Mavericks and the Anchor Electronics that have now gone public and are seeing that big, that big rise in popularity as they've really built a lot of consumer trust.
No, that's really cool. Now, we really believe in having, redundancy and resilience in the channels. You don't want to sell on 10, 15 channels. You don't want a shotgun approach, but most of our clients are selling on Amazon.com, Shopify, eBay, and Walmart.com. Okay. Some Amazon Canada, some Amazon CO UK, some international, maybe another channel if they're crafty, an Etsy store. But you want to focus and make sure you're doing well on each of those, because you don't want all your eggs in one basket. You get suspended on your Amazon account, it could put you out of business. Okay. The other pieces are resilience in your supply chain. I'm sure everybody's dealt with that this year, with their supply chains closing and sales tripling and playing catch up. But you want to have resilience there. And then you want to have resilience in your products. If you have a very seasonal product, find a product that sells well in the other seasons so that you have consistent cash flow, or look to expand. I'm all about a super narrow niche, but if you can feed off that a little bit and balance it off, if you've got 3 SKUs that are selling well, find some companion SKUs that'll sell well. If for some reason there's competition, Chinese competitors, whatever else coming in, something impacts your ability, or you can't get those products for 3 months, 6 months for your supply chain issues. You just want to look at where can you be more resilient in your business. I've got a Vietnam supplier as well as a China supplier, as well as possibly a more expensive US supplier. And then you can leverage those depending on, what the situation is. But for the most part, we've been helping all of our clients who are up 50%, 100%, 200, 300% in sales. And a lot of it's still maintaining. A few have backed off a little bit, but they're still year over year, in most cases, over 100% over where they were last year. And they're just racing to keep up.
And I think that's fantastic and inspiring to hear for any sellers out there that are maybe just entering the waters, trying to see, which pools are warm, which products work. As you mentioned, right? Maybe you have 2 or 3 good SKUs. You're trying to figure out these complementary products. But hearing a success story like that of these larger sellers that are seeing just that exponential growth as the rise in e-commerce, as the demand for e-commerce is out there, has to be pretty inspiring for any new or entry-level seller out there.
Yep. We've definitely, with all the changes with COVID, broken that, wow, it was like 5% and then maybe 10%. How is it e-commerce? When I buy everything, my doorbell rings. I'm like, ooh, what'd I get? It's like Christmas every day when you buy from Amazon and you're near a Amazon distribution center. You can get stuff show up same day or next day. I still forget what I ordered 2 hours ago. So it's always a surprise. But it's really interesting, seeing that the growth and that we've jumped, and it's just, the retail apocalypse is going to continue to happen. And it's just going to accelerate that e-commerce, and it's still viable. It is much harder than it was to do 5 years ago or 9 years ago when we started, and with our first Amazon seller and all the stuff that was going on. It's still a viable way for people to either build a side business or invest in an e-commerce business, buy some inventory and sell and figure it all out. And it'll definitely fill up your time.
For sure. And over the last 9 years, as you mentioned, you and your CEO wife, Patty, have put together an incredible amount of resources. So I really wanted to highlight that. And probably the best way to find that is on YouTube. And I have a link here, but it's probably easier to just search Catching Clouds Academy. I think, what did you say, Scott? Over 100 videos on there?
Over 100 videos, and probably next month we'll start creating new content. But we have 100 videos, both for sellers as well as accountants, because we do a little bit of advising to other accountants that are out there and our peers that have started in the last couple of years. Then we have our accounting for Amazon and accounting for Shopify course if you want to do it yourself. And we talk about how to set those things up both on Xero and QBO, and how to set up A2X accounting, which is the tool we strongly recommend, along with Payoneer. And most of our clients, especially the international ones, are working with Payoneer. And then if you're serious about your over $1 million business, we work with $1 to $50 million sellers. Reach out to our website and fill out our contact form, and I'd be happy to talk to you. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those via email as well. We always just want to help sellers be better businesses and point them in the right direction, whether it's the right insurance or the right advice or the right, if you can't find a CPA, I've got an e-commerce CPA that understands your business, understands what FBA means and long-term and short-term storage fees mean. I know some CPAs that understand inventory-based businesses and can advise you properly.
Yeah, Scott, and we want to say thank you so much for being a great partner of Payoneer and joining us on the State of E-commerce this week. I know TJ and I have learned a lot, and you've definitely imparted some great wisdom for e-commerce sellers and actual items that they can take here in Q4 if they haven't already started to check those boxes to prepare them here for the end of the year and take them into 2021. So with that, as we always do, I'd love to give you the last word here on our session today.
No, thank you very much. I really do appreciate the partnership, the relationship, and the conversation, the opportunity. For any sellers, just remember that it's not a hobby, that it's a business, and that you don't actually have to literally do it all yourself. So as an entrepreneur ourselves, we realize that, and that there are resources out there. There are people that you can trust to outsource your accounting to do the bulk of the work, so that you can focus on the part of your business that you're most passionate about, whether it's product design or the marketing or the social media or customer feedback or just being an entrepreneur and running a business and having employees, or it's just, most people, it's not typically just the money, but what it does and allows you to support your family and your hobbies and everything else. But having detailed, accurate financials and monitoring your cash flow are some of the most important things that you can do to make sure that your business is viable and ongoing concern.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great point to end on. We bring on companies from all over the spectrum in relation to selling online and online businesses. And, the point in that is to allow sellers to learn and make them realize that there are companies that can help them, whether it is on the accounting side or the international side or the cash flow side or, the logistics or whomever else we bring on. Don't do it yourself. That's why these companies exist, because people need help. And that's what we're here to do. So for Ben, myself, Scott, again, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys next week.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you.